I thought we were building a new life, but my son's obsession with my girlfriend is tearing it all down. My name is Robert, I'm 48, and for the last year and a half, I've been in a relationship with a woman named Anna, who is 45. We met under a cloud of shared, profound loss. My wife, Elena, passed away after a long battle with multiple sclerosis. Anna lost her husband, Tom, very suddenly to a heart attack. We were both adrift in that particular, isolating sea of grief, and we found each other at a community support workshop for widows and widowers. I wasn't looking for anything. She claimed she wasn't either. Yet, there was a quiet understanding between us, a recognition of familiar sadness that slowly, over cups of terrible community center coffee, turned into friendship and then into something deeper. I have one child, my son David, who is 18. Anna has two, a daughter, Sophia, who's 15 and the source of my current turmoil, her son, Jacob, who is 19. Sophia is a sweet, artistic girl, a bit quiet, who seems to have accepted me with gentle, if somewhat reserved, kindness. She paints, and she once gave me a small watercolor of the old oak tree in our backyard. It hangs in my study. David is at university, studying engineering, and comes home on breaks. He's polite to Anna. They share an interest in classic rock music, and overall, he seems happy that I'm no longer alone. He's a good kid, focused on his future. I'm a structural engineer. My world is one of blueprints, load-bearing calculations, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing something I helped design will stand solid for decades. Anna is a landscape architect. She talks about the poetry of spaces, the flow of light and shadow, the way plants can tell a story. We joke that between us, we handle the bones and the skin of the world. It's a good balance. She's thoughtful, patient, and possesses a calming presence I desperately needed after years of being a caregiver. I've even started learning to identify birds by their songs because of her. I find it soothing. We took everything painfully slow. For nearly 8 months, our relationship existed in a bubble of quiet dinners, long walks, and conversations that stretched into the early hours. We only introduced each other to our children when we were certain this was permanent, not a rebound born of loneliness. The initial meetings were cautiously optimistic. David shook Anna's hand and asked thoughtful questions about her work. Jacob was quiet. He observed me with an intensity that, at the time, I mistook for shyness or perhaps protective suspicion. He's a tall, lanky young man with his mother's intelligent eyes. He's taking a gap year, working at a local tech repair shop, and taking a few online courses in graphic design. The weirdness started subtly, a series of small things that individually could be dismissed as eccentricities or simple kindness, but together began to form a pattern that made my skin prickle. It began with the tools. I have a well-organized workshop in the garage. One Saturday, I was building a new planter box for Anna as a surprise. I couldn't find my Japanese pole saw. After turning the place upside down, I found it on my workbench, cleaned, oiled, and laid atop a clean cloth next to all my other saws, which had also been meticulously cleaned and organized. I hadn't done it. Anna doesn't go in the garage. David was away at school. That left Jacob. When I thanked him later, he just shrugged, looking down at his feet, saw they were getting rusty. Figured you want them in good shape. It was a kind gesture, if slightly odd. He'd never shown interest in my workshop before, but I thanked him sincerely. Then came the coffee. Every single morning, without fail, a perfectly brewed cup of French press coffee would appear on the kitchen counter next to my keys just as I was about to leave for work. Not for Anna, who prefers tea. Just for me. The first few times, Anna made it, thinking it was sweet of me to have it ready. When I realized it was Jacob, I was touched. "You don't have to do that, son," I told him. He just said, "I'm up anyway. I know you like it strong." He'd remembered how I took it from one offhand comment months prior. Then he started doing my laundry. Not the family laundry. My laundry. I came home one Tuesday to find my week's worth of dress shirts and trousers, clothes I typically take to a dry cleaner, hung with precision in my closet, pressed to a military standard. The sharp crease in the trousers could have cut paper. Anna was as baffled as I was. "I thought you'd taken them out," she said. Jacob, when confronted, seemed almost hurt by our confusion. The dry cleaning chemicals are harsh. I was just trying to help. I have a steamer. It felt invasive. A strange overstepping of a boundary I couldn't quite define. Anna had a talk with him about personal boundaries. He nodded, apologized, and stopped with the laundry. But the gestures morphed. He began engaging me in long, detailed conversations about my projects. He'd research architectural history and bring up obscure facts about the builders of Gothic cathedrals or the engineering behind Roman aqueducts. His enthusiasm was flattering at first. It felt like he was genuinely trying to connect. He'd wait for me to come home, often sitting in the living room reading a book on design, just so he could ask about my day. He began to mirror my opinions, even on trivial things like favorite brand of tools or my preference for a certain style of mid-century modern furniture. The competitive edge appeared with Anna. If Anna mentioned she was making my favorite stew for dinner, Jacob would somehow remember I'd once said I loved a particular dish from a specific restaurant and would attempt, often clumsily, to recreate it. If Anna bought me a book, Jacob would get me a first edition of something by the same author. The gifts became extravagant. For my birthday, Anna gave me a beautiful hand-tooled leather notebook for sketching ideas. Jacob presented me with a vintage, astronomically expensive mechanical drafting set in a polished walnut case, the kind I'd ogled in antique stores but would never buy for myself. He'd spent over 2 months of his earnings on it. The look on Anna's face was a mixture of shock and dismay. I was deeply uncomfortable. I tried to refuse it, but he looked so crestfallen, I reluctantly accepted, feeling the weight of the obligation implied. He also developed a sudden, intense interest in classical jazz, because I have an old records collection. My son David humors my love for Miles Davis, but Jacob immersed himself. He bought a turntable, started collecting vinyl, and would ask me to explain the nuances of different recordings. He'd play my favorite albums when I came home, saying, "I knew you'd had a tough day. Thought this might help." The physical space began to shrink. He'd find reasons to be near me. If I was reading on the patio, he'd come out to get some air and sit in the adjacent chair, often in silence. He started using my preferred brand of cologne. I'd smell it lingering in hallways he'd just passed through. Once, when I was working at the kitchen table on some blueprints, he leaned over my shoulder to look, his body closer than necessary, his breath on my neck. I stiffened and he pulled back, apologizing quickly, but the moment left me unsettled. Anna saw pieces of it. We'd discuss it in hushed, worried tones at night. "He's just looking for a father figure," she'd say, her voice thick with guilt and concern. "He and Tom were so close. He's lost Robert. He's clinging to you because you're stable, you're here." I wanted to believe that, desperately. The alternative was too disturbing to entertain. The tension came to a head after we moved in together. We found a house with a separate apartment over the garage, a perfect space for Jacob, giving him independence while keeping him close. It was meant to be a fresh start. Instead, it became a stage, a final act of this unsettling drama. Jacob began treating the main house as an extension of his space. He'd come in without knocking, often early in the morning or late at night. He'd join us for movie nights, sitting on the floor near my feet instead of on the sofa. He'd volunteer for any errand that involved riding with me in the car. The final straw for Anna was when she found him in our bedroom one afternoon. He wasn't doing anything sinister. He was adjusting the blinds, claiming the afternoon sun was causing a glare on the framed blueprint on the wall that I designed. But it was a profound violation. Anna was furious. Jacob was defensive, saying he was just trying to protect the artwork. The incident that broke everything happened last week. Anna was away overnight at a landscaping conference. David was back at university. It was just Jacob and me in the house. I'd ordered pizza, and we ate in the living room, watching a documentary. The atmosphere was awkward, charged with all the unspoken weirdness of the past months. I was deliberately keeping things casual, distant. After the film, I stood up to clear the plates. As I turned from the coffee table, Jacob was suddenly right there, blocking my path to the kitchen. Before I could react, he stepped forward and hugged me. Not a brief, backslapping hug, a full, tight, clinging embrace, his head resting against my shoulder. He was trembling. I froze, my arms pinned to my sides, a paper plate crumpling in my hand. "Jacob," I said, my voice low and firm. "Let go." He didn't. He mumbled something into my shirt that sounded like, "I just need you to see me." A cold fury, born of months of discomfort and a sense of being emotionally manipulated, shot through me. I put my hands on his shoulders and pushed him back, harder than I intended. He stumbled, looking at me with wide, wounded eyes. "What is wrong with you?" I heard myself snap, the anger raw and startling. "That is completely inappropriate. Do you understand that?" The hurt on his face morphed into something else, defiance, then a flash of anger. "What's wrong with me?" he shot back, his voice cracking. "I do everything for you. Everything. I try to be perfect for you. And you just look right through me to her. Anna is my partner." I roared, my control snapping. "This isn't about being perfect. This is about boundaries you have systematically ignored. I am not your father, Jacob. And this fixation has to stop. It's unhealthy, and it ends now." The word fixation seemed to physically wound him. He stared at me, his face pale, then turned and fled, not to his apartment, but out the front door into the night. I let him go, my heart hammering against my ribs, a toxic mix of rage, guilt, and profound relief swirling in my gut. The line, finally, had been drawn. When Anna returned the next afternoon, I was a wreck. I hadn't slept. Jacob had come back around midnight and gone straight to his apartment, not speaking to me. I told Anna everything, my voice flat with exhaustion. I recounted the hug, the words exchanged, the months of building unease. I didn't sugarcoat my anger. "I can't live like this, Anna," I said finally. "I feel like a prisoner in my own home. He needs help. Serious, professional help. And until he gets it, I don't know if I could be under the same roof." Anna listened, her face ashen. She didn't defend him. She didn't make excuses. She just cried silent tears, her worst fears confirmed. "I knew," she whispered. "I knew it was more than grief. I just didn't want it to be true." Then she told me something that reshaped the entire nightmare. Through her tears, she revealed that after Tom's death, Jacob had become deeply attached to his high school guidance counselor, a man named Mr. Dawson. This counselor had taken a special interest in Jacob, offering him extra sessions, texting him privately, even taking him out for coffee to talk about his future. It had felt off to Anne at the time, but Jacob, so lost and flattered by the attention, had insisted it was just mentorship. The relationship had only ended when Dawson suddenly moved districts after a vague rumor about boundary issues with another student. Jacob had been devastated, feeling abandoned all over again. He's been looking for that attention, that approval, from another man ever since, Anna sobbed. "And you're everything Tom wasn't in some ways. Tom was a musician, chaotic, spontaneous. You're steady, you're solid, you build things. I think in his messed up head, Winning your approval became the same as fixing the hole his dad left, and then replacing what that counselor took from him. The puzzle pieces crashed into place with a sickening clarity. The perfectionism, the obsessive acts of service, the mirroring, the territorial behavior over me. It was a romantic crush, not in a conventional sense. It was a pathological transference, a desperate attempt to secure the unwavering attention of a male authority figure he felt he'd lost twice over. He wasn't trying to compete with Anna for me as a partner. He was trying to become the ideal, indispensable son to earn a love he feared was conditional. My anger dissolved, replaced by a heavy, sorrowful understanding, and a deep, burning rage toward the man who had exploited a grieving boy's vulnerability. We gave Jacob a day of space before Anna, and I went to his apartment together. He looked shattered. The confrontation had broken something in his carefully constructed performance. We talked for hours. Anna, with my support, gently broached the topic of Dawson. Jacob broke down completely, confessing to the inappropriate emotional dependency, the confusion, the shame he felt. He admitted, his voice barely audible, that he knew his behavior with me was too much, but he didn't know how to stop. He was terrified that if he stopped being useful, being perfect, I would lose interest, just like his dad was gone, and just like Dawson had disappeared. It was a heartbreaking confession. I told him, clearly and firmly, that my care for him as my partner's son was not conditional on him doing my laundry or buying me gifts, that it was based on respect, and that his recent actions had damaged that respect. I told him I was not, and could never be, a replacement for his father or a corrective to a predatory counselor. But I could be a supportive adult in his life if, and only if, strict, unwavering boundaries were reestablished and he committed to getting help. He agreed immediately, desperately. Therapy was no longer a suggestion. It was a non-negotiable condition for all of us moving forward. Anna found a therapist specializing in complex grief and attachment disorders. We also committed to family sessions. The dynamics in the house are different now. Painfully formal, but necessary. Jacob has moved his primary living space entirely back to the garage apartment. He texts before coming over. Our interactions are brief and courteous. The excessive favors have ceased. The coffee machine is silent in the mornings unless I use it myself. The heavy, oppressive weight of his expectation has lifted, leaving a hollow, aching space that we are all slowly learning to navigate with honesty instead of performance. David came home for a weekend and noticed a chill. We gave him a simplified version. He shook his head, sighed his typical engineering student sigh, and said, "Wow, glad I was at school. People are complicated." Then he challenged me to a game of chess, and for a few hours, things felt normal. Anna and I are on solid ground, though the experience has scarred us. The easy intimacy we had is tempered now by a shared vigilance, a sadness for the boy in the apartment above the garage who is hurting in such a deep way. The idea of marriage, which we've begun to softly discuss, is tabled. We need to rebuild this family foundation first, with clear borders and healthy supports. Last night, I was in my workshop, finally building that planter box for Anna. The door was open. Jacob appeared in the doorway, not entering. He held up my cordless drill. I noticed the battery was dead. I charged it for you. He placed it just inside the door on a bench and turned to leave. "Jacob," I said. He stopped. I took a breath. "Thank you for charging the battery. That was considerate. It was a small, appropriate kindness. A normal one." He nodded, a flicker of something like relief in his eyes. "You're welcome," he said, and walked away. It's not a happy ending. It's an ending full of scars and caution tape, but it's an honest one. We are all, in our own ways, under construction. And for now, that has to be enough.